All right. So Donald Trump's latest legal stunt may be about to backfire so badly. This is going to be the biggest backfire we've ever seen, possibly, in his legal troubles. But it's about to backfire so badly that even his lawyers are probably looking at the complaint and whispering to themselves, "Who let him file this?" Because in a minute, I'll show you why this BBC lawsuit could turn into one of the biggest self inflicted legal disasters of his life. And let's hope that's true. On the surface, it looks like another Trump media lawsuit. He says the BBC edited a January 6th documentary unfairly, which they actually did. So now he's demanding $10 billion. That part is outrageous enough. But the real story isn't the lawsuit. It's not just the lawsuit. The real story is how this lawsuit could potentially backfire on him so badly because of one big mistake he's made. And that mistake could greatly expand what the judge may allow the BBC to ask for once this thing gets to discovery. And that's where this gets really interesting because the records now being discussed aren't just embarrassing, they go straight to the heart of what Trump was doing before, during, and after January 6th. The very records people have been trying to get their hands on for years and haven't been able to. So Trump thought, Trump, the genius in the White House, thought he was putting the BBC on trial, but he may have accidentally put himself, his phone logs, his schedule, his business records, and the whole January 6th story back under the microscope. That's not 4D chess, folks. That's suing the fire alarm because it made noise while your kitchen was burning down. I'm Jonathan Burton, a former lifelong Republican who now believes we have to kick back and relax. No, sorry. I now believe we have to kick every single Republican out of office that we can this November because I'm now calling the GOP the NFP, the new fascist party, something ironically Republicans used to stand against, but now they have embraced fascism head on and they're loving it. All right. One of the most depressing stories of the Trump era has been watching so much of the American media slowly get trained to accept abuse as part of the job. When Trump first came down the escalator in 2015, a lot of journalists treated him like entertainment at first. I get it. He was the reality TV guy with the orange face and the gold plated apartment and the vocabulary of a slot machine that only pays out insults. But Trump figured out something very quickly. If you bullied one reporter personally, most of the press would just line up and stand there. He he could insult the journalist, he could dodge the question, he could call the outlet fake news, and somehow the story would become the reporter's attitude instead of whatever disaster Trump had just been asked to explain. And for whatever reason, they never bought his horribly rude behavior into question. I've never understood why the press doesn't stick together and gang up on him. You know, when he attacks one of their own, they should tag team him and not move on, not let him move on until they force him to apologize to the reporter they just attacked. Stand together, man. But they don't do that. And once a bully learns the room will let him get away with it, he doesn't become more reasonable. He becomes more aggressive. And that's been his pattern for years. Trump attacks the reporter, attacks the outlet, attacks the question, and then everyone spends 3 days debating whether the media was unfair by asking him to account for his own behavior. And it works. Unfortunately, it works. The problem is that many American media companies aren't just news organizations anymore, they're corporate properties. And they're owned by billionaires with business interest and political interest and regulatory interest before the government. And a very strong interest in not getting yelled at by the president on social media, which they seem to care about more than anything else. So when Trump sues, threatens, bullies, or demands tribute, far too many of them they start looking for the nearest exit. And that's how a free press becomes an owned press, owned by the government. And this press is increasingly more and more owned by this government and by this president. But this time, Trump has a different problem. because he picked a fight with the wrong media company, the BBC. And the BBC, it's not just it's not perfect. And in this case, they did actually make a mistake and they've admitted to it, but it's not an American owned network. So, and it doesn't have a corporate parent that's waiting for Trump's FCC to bless a merger. And he can't threaten their broadcast license. He can't summon the usual American corporate panic machine and say, nice little media company you've got there. Shame if some restrictions were put on it. So deprived of this favorite pressure of his favorite pressure points, Trump has gone to his favorite backup plan. He sued them for $10 billion. Apparently, $1 billion is what he asked for when he's only mildly cranky. But the backstory is the BBC aired a documentary about January 6th. I believe it was this year, and it included edited footage from Trump's speech at the Ellipse that day. And the edit was bad. It was bad. They spliced together parts of the speech that were delivered at different points, and it created a misleading impression. The BBC, it made it look like he was calling directly for violence, which he didn't directly do that day, although we all have our opinions on what he was insinuating. Anyway, the BBC has apologized and said it would not rebroadcast the program. But that couldn't stop Trump from doing what he always does. He sued them. But in this case, I think he's made a huge mistake. He sued them under Florida's unfair trade practices law. Now, listen to what's going to come of this. Trump is accusing them of deceptive and unfair practices, which, it's a little like a raccoon filing a sanitation complaint against the garbage dump. But here's where the story gets better. Lawsuits come with that inconvenient little truth called discovery, where both sides get to ask for evidence and all the documents and records that could possibly be related to the case. And by filing the type of case he did, that's going to open up Pandora's box. They're going to be able to ask for a lot more documents and records than they would have been if he had sued for something more narrow and didn't bring unfair trade practices into it. According to the reporting, the BBC has asked for Trump's phone records, calendar schedules, daily diaries, and communications from the period after the 2020 election through the end of his first term, which of course includes the weeks leading up to January 6th. So Trump filed a lawsuit saying this is how it's gone down so far. He's filed a lawsuit saying the BBC made me look responsible for January 6th, and the BBC basically responded, great, let's review the evidence about your role around January 6th. That's the backfire. That's the part Trump doesn't seem to have thought through. His supporters love to say he's playing 4D chess, but this isn't even checkers. And think about what those records could answer. Who was Trump calling before January 6th? Who was calling him? What was on his schedule? What was he doing while the Capitol was under siege? Who was he communicating with about the rally? Who was involved before and after? And did he make serious efforts to stop the attack? Or did other leaders have to step into the vacuum while he sat back and watched the country burn on live television? These are things, we've been asking, and, we pretty much know the answer. But he has his responses, saying, no, I didn't do it. You did it. Nancy Pelosi did it. Wasn't me. I was doing the right thing. This would prove exactly what he was doing. And that's why discovery matters. A rally slogan can survive on vibes. A legal case can't. At some point, somebody says, please produce the documents. And suddenly, crying fake news and playing the eternal victim isn't a legal strategy anymore. And the BBC reportedly isn't stopping with January 6 records. Here's where it gets really juicy. They've also sought financial information connected to Trump's claimed damages. See, he didn't just claim hurt reputation, but he claimed actual damages, like financial damages to his companies. Now they're going to be able to bring in all kinds of other evidence in discovery, including records involving his revocable trusts, the trust tied to his business interests run by Don Jr. And that's perfectly legal because Trump isn't just only claiming that the BBC hurt his feelings, he's also claiming they damaged his reputation, as if that was even possible to damage it more than it's already been damaged. But he's claiming they damaged his reputation and his brand and his properties and his business interests. So, now he's got to prove it. He's got to show the damage. He's got to prove there were damages. He's got to show the numbers. Here's how much I was making before. Then, when the BBC broadcast this, now my income dropped by 20%. But it's only going to show my income skyrocketed no matter what they did. He's going to have a little trouble proving damages, but he's going to have to prove, he's going to have to show the real numbers. He's going to have to do that if he wants to continue the case. If you walk into court claiming someone financially harmed your business empire, you don't get to clutch your pearls when they ask to look at the business empire. That's like suing someone for denting your car and then screaming invasion of privacy when they ask to inspect the car. This is the part Trump never seems to understand. He wants the benefits of suing without the responsibilities of suing. He wants the intimidation. He wants the fundraising email. He wants the Truth Social post. He wants his supporters to hear, I'm fighting back against the fake media. What he doesn't want is the part where the other side gets lawyers too. Because once the other side fights back, the lawsuit stops being an act and things start getting real. But Trump is all act. He's all bluster. He's all hot air. But Discovery isn't impressed by the act. It's not impressed by hot air and bluster. Discovery doesn't care how many times you cry and play the victim. Discovery just sits there in a gray suit and says, Sir, hand over the phone records. And that's Trump's greatest nightmare, really, when you think about it. Have to hand over all those records. I don't think he's going to do it. So, what do you think? Let me know what you think. Is he going to hand over the records or is he going to shut down the lawsuit? This is why the BBC's response matters so much. And it's really, I mean, we should all be glad he sued them and we should be really glad they're fighting back. And they really have nothing to lose because he doesn't he doesn't regulate them. He has no power over their regulations. But the BBC appears to be doing something very simple and very powerful. They seem to be doing the right thing. They're saying, you sued us, now prove your case. And they're not intimidated by Trump because he holds no power over them. It's sad, though, that in the Trump era, seeing basic institutional spine feels like watching a superhero movie. But a free country can't have a press that flinches every time a powerful man clears his throat. A democracy can't work when a president treats reporters like enemies and courts like weapons and lawsuits like campaign ads. And Christians should have no trouble seeing the moral issue here. I mean, being asked for evidence in a lawsuit you filed isn't a witch hunt, which he will surely call it. He'll tell all kinds of lies about it. And will these MAGA Christians fall for the lies like they fall for Benny Hinn? We'll see. As probably likely. Anyway, those are well-known consequences of filing lawsuits. So, he filed the lawsuit, he's going to suffer the consequences, and then he's going to blame everybody else. But let's be honest here about the biggest truth, or the bigger truth. January 6th wasn't confusing. We all saw the rally. We watched it in real time. We saw the march and the attacks. So no, Trump wasn't the victim of January 6th. The country was the victim. Trump wants to take one BBC mistake and rewrite the entire history of what we all watched that day with our own eyes. But that's his gimmick. Find one flaw, exploit it, blow it up, and use it to distract from the mountain of evidence against him. So, to my MAGA friends, here's the challenge for you. Trump filed this lawsuit. Nobody made him do it. Nobody dragged him into court. He chose to make January 6th part of a $10 billion legal fight. So now let's watch what he does. If his conduct was innocent, he should welcome handing over all his files, phone logs, calendars, and communications as the best evidence to prove his innocence, to prove it to everyone, to prove to everyone that the BBC got the story wrong and that all the rest of us have gotten it wrong too. Only a guilty man would fight and delay discovery in this case. An innocent man would want all the facts to come out and they would just hand them over. No, hey, I've done nothing wrong. Here are all my papers. I guarantee you that's not going to happen. But if his response is to run to social media screaming, witch hunt, for the millionth time, and all that will do is prove that he has something to hide. Because a man, like I say, with nothing to hide, wouldn't be afraid to release all of this evidence. This whole thing may become one of the great legal backfires of the Trump era. It may even become one of the great legal backfires of all time. And let's hope it does. He wanted to sue the BBC into submission, but the BBC may have found a legal path to pry open records he spent years trying to hide. He wanted to make the documentary disappear, but he may have created the sequel. Maybe he keeps fighting. Maybe he folds. Maybe he declares victory while retreating, which is his signature move. I won, so now I'm out. I don't want to keep the fight going. I don't want to keep bothering people and wasting time. I want to get back to my job. And I won anyway. So it's like Iran, right? We won already on the second day. We won already. Now we're in the, what, fourth month, fifth month almost going on. Anyway, but that's a signature move, and it's the political equivalent of slipping on a banana peel and yelling, perfect landing. Either way, the lesson is clear. Bullies thrive when institutions cave, and they panic when institutions fight back. And for once, a major news organization seems to be telling Donald Trump, you brought the lawsuit, now bring the receipts. And okay, what did I bring? I don't know. But anyway, that does it for me. I'm Jonathan Burton. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.